Is anxiety preventing you or someone you know from leaving the home? Let's watch this quick video. Welcome to the neurosensory section of the course. Today we're talking about recognizing and responding to neurosensory centering behaviors. Several years ago, I was brought in to help a student who is struggling to leave his home. It's actually pretty common for me to receive requests about students that are scared to leave their homes. I'll see it almost every year. In these situations, the individual may have been home for months or even years on end. In some cases, it can be so extreme that the individual struggles to leave their own bedroom. For today's case study, we'll take a look at Henry, a 14-year-old boy who'd given up on leaving his home entirely. In Henry's case, it had been over a year and a half since he had left the house. When I first met him, he told me that he hadn't been sleeping well at night. He would often nap on and off throughout the day and in general, just felt deflated. He knew this was related to his reclusive behavior, but he couldn't bring himself to make a change. "What makes you want to stay at home all the time?" I asked. He said he had no reason to leave the house because he had everything he needed here and he was safe. Safe? I asked. He began to share some of his past experiences of being bullied in school and how he couldn't imagine going back to a place like that. He clearly had some lasting trauma. The remedy for which he had decided was to avoid places like that entirely. The more Henry spoke about those experiences, the more he began to pace. His shoulders began to rise and his speech became faster and higher pitched. He repeated again, he would not go back there and that the people were awful. I'm sure many of you who are watching this are parents with children who have expressed something similar, if not you yourself. Bullying and seclusion are things all of us can relate to. In Henry's case, he didn't see the benefit of trying anymore. He had long accepted that he didn't care about getting his high school diploma, and that he probably wouldn't live long enough to get to that point. Henry felt that there was no need to try and make things change. Whenever we would try to leave the house, he would start to become escalated and say he couldn't leave. He'd become anxious and nauseous, and in some cases, he would actually get physically sick. He would tell me how he wasn't right and he needed to get back home right away. Sometimes, as a compromise, we would just walk to the mailbox and then back to the house. I noticed he was less likely to feel symptoms if he didn't have much advance notice of a trip out. He was also more likely to push himself through the task if he had an incentive, or if the expectations were kept low. He was willing to do more because he wasn't worrying about disappointing anyone. When I asked him to describe what made him feel sick, he said, some of the things that impacted him the most were the change in temperature outside, the brightness of the day, and the auditory stimulation around him. The more we worked together over the next few weeks, we began to discover some little techniques to help him feel more comfortable when trying new things. For example, using sunglasses or keeping the car window slightly open helped him feel more at ease. Henry also really benefited from having some water readily available in case he started to feel nauseous. It was a way for him to self-regulate. Now, Henry has gone out on day trips, gone out to eat, gone to school when he is feeling supported. It's always a struggle, but he's learning how to adapt. The fear will never go away entirely, but it will decrease. It just takes patience, repetition, and support. Henry's behavior, while extreme, is not entirely abnormal. Many people, including your average adult, have ways of coping with their own idiosyncrasies in order to get the task done. Henry, unfortunately, was a victim of bullying and someone who struggled to find a way to cope with that trauma. He needed someone to be there and support him, but also teach him how to support himself, if only to prove to himself that he can solve this obstacle, and he will have the confidence to take on other obstacles. For more tips, go to our free webinar at www.thebehaviorbootcamp.com.